Thank you for joining our Grow Your Own webinar series for school year 24-25. This is our first webinar in this series this year, and we're super excited to be joined by an amazing panel, all from Pennsylvania. My name is Dr. Lisa Rollins. I'm the National Director of Outreach and Partnerships here at PDK International. I am a family consumer science teacher through and through. I taught child development and ed professions in Prince George's County, Maryland, and I assisted in helping start the Teaching Academy of Maryland, which is a 4-year pathway in Maryland for future teachers. I then moved to Arizona and took a job at the Arizona Department of Ed, where I was a program specialist and monitored programs for ECE and ed professions, and did Perkins grant monitoring as well and program monitoring, and was the state director of EdRising Arizona for 5 years prior to coming to the national office. So I have taught the course, I've been embedded with the course, and all I can say is I wish I would have had EdRising when I was teaching this course. So we're going to dive right into the content. I'm going to give a brief little overview, and then we're going to get to our panelists who are amazing and wonderful and have a wealth of expertise in the education sector. I did want to highlight that Secretary Cardona was at the Back to School bus tour and stopped in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to visit one of our newest sites, Keystone Oaks High School. So we're very excited there. All of our 4 national officers got to meet Secretary Cardona, and even our vice president got to introduce him at the event at Keystone Oaks. So we were super excited to be part of that bus tour. If you didn't get a chance to see it, pictures, the entire picture gallery is up on our website as well. And an email also went out to all of our EdRising members highlighting this amazing event that we had on Friday. If you don't know about Educators Rising, you're in the right place. PDK was established in 1906, and in 1937, the NEA established Future Teachers of America, which later transitioned to Future Educators Association. But in 2015, we rebranded FEA into Educators Rising. So if you have an FEA in your state or an FTA in your state, all the same, just a different branding. And in 2017, we released the first product that we had, which was called then the Educators Rising Academy, now known as our curriculum. And in 2024, which is our largest year yet, we've had over close to 25,000 student members, and our largest national conference with over 3,300 attendees. This year is also important to note that we launched an additional tool for resource for teachers, which is our EdRising assessments, which is another time-saving tool for teachers with short response and extended response answers to give to your students as checks for understanding. So we're super excited about the launch of that program as well. Just to preface the webinar for today, we know that we have 2 major challenges that PDK Educators Rising focuses on as part of the mission. And number 1 is the teacher shortage, the educator shortage. We know that the statistic from August of 23 says that nearly half of schools are understaffed at the beginning of the year. And every presentation in person that I start with is stand up if you had at least 1 opening, 2 openings. We get to sometimes 25. 1 got up to 50 unfilled spots. So we know that this is a problem nationwide, and we know that that's something that we're focusing on by starting students to explore careers in education earlier in their career exploration. The second issue is that the schools, the teachers that are in front of our students aren't reflecting the community. So the major benefit of a Grow Your Own program is that we're looking at students who have teacher and educator potential while they're still in high school, so that they will come back and teach in our communities, and therefore they'll reflect their communities, right? They were come up in the community, maybe they went to college, come back. We want them to come back because we know that the ethnicity of the schools, the students don't often match the teachers. So that's the second mission of PDK Educators Rising, is to make sure that our teachers reflect the populations in which they serve. Now I'm going to show just a brief little clip from our Educators Rising conference where we talked about student voice, and there's some students here that are going to share their voice on Educators Rising and education.
Next step is I want to attend college. I want to major in education and hopefully minor in social media marketing or digital marketing.
I'm going to do elementary education, and I want to either teach second grade or third grade. I'll probably teach around my hometown because my hometown's pretty small, so I like the hometown vibe that it brings.
I'd love to go and get my bachelor's and master's, probably in state school in Arkansas, probably majoring in English and education to become an English teacher. I really want to teach middle school students.
I'm going to Pennsylvania State University on a full ride scholarship in the fall to major in middle level, 4th through 8th math. Want to get involved with educational policy, not only being in the classroom, but also changing laws to make it known so there's more programs to implement diversity in education.
My next steps, I would like to go to Reach University for education, early childhood, and become a ESL teacher. And I would like to work back in my hometown, Port Allen, for teaching.
I want to go to college for middle grades education, and my goal is to be an 8th grade math teacher and be a basketball coach.
I'm going to go to Mansfield University for secondary education and history, and a minor in psychology. And my goal is to come back to my home school district and teach there.
I hope I'll go to college and hoping UCA, and then I will get my master's degree, and then I will hopefully come back to Lake Hamilton and be a second grade teacher.
I think I would love to be a non-core teacher, at least get a degree in family consumer science, and then as well as a science as teaching degree in chemistry.
I definitely want to go into education. I'm looking into teaching high school or something that supports teachers and students. And so I kind of want to start out as a teacher to get that experience and to do something with policy to help the school system support those who maybe are struggling in ways that aren't noticed right now, and to find those students who are struggling silently and to be able to advocate for them and support them, and teachers as well.
All right. It's amazing how many of them said that they wanted to come back to their own district. All right, now we're going to dive into the Grow Your Own and getting them to come back to their districts, because 60% of teachers end up working within 20 miles of where they grew up. So think about making sure that they're coming back to teach in your community is so essential. Now we're going to get into the stars of the show. I'm seeing that there's a rectangle covering my back, so I'm not really quite sure how to fix that, but we're going to go with it. While I kick it off to Brittany, Chris, and Amanda, I will try to fix the slideshow. Brittany is from Phoenixville Area High School. Chris Clayton works for PSEA and is the Director of Education Services. And Amanda Funk is the EdRising Teacher Leader and CTE Teacher Educator Preparation Program Lead at McCaskey High School in the School District of Lancaster. We welcome all three of you. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And we're going to start off with explain how you got started with Educators Rising. How did you hear about us? What did that look like to you? And I'm going to go fix the PowerPoint while you guys explain how you got started with EdRising.
So perhaps it might make sense for me to kind of go first, and then Amanda and Brittany can go there, because we basically EdRising did not exist in Pennsylvania at the start of last school year. There were 0 members of Educators Rising in Pennsylvania when we started in September of 2024. And so I've been directing as a part of my work at PSEA, the student PSEA program, which is this past year, 7,219 college students enrolled in teacher preparation programs across the state. And that's work I've been doing for 10 years plus now with PSEA. And along the way, of course, the sort of symbiotic relationship happened with PDK and EdRising and NEA. And so I was able to basically begin to push to start to get Educators Rising here. We've had, at least as you noted, nationwide, but particularly acute in Pennsylvania, has been the emerging shortage and really pernicious lack of diversity in the educator workforce here. So just some basic statistics, over the last decade, essentially we had what we call here in Pennsylvania level 1 instructional certificates. Over a decade ago, we were typically around 15 to 16,000 issued every year. So that was graduating in-state Pennsylvania students on their way with that first teaching certificate into the classroom. The last couple of years, we've had about 4,000 to 5,000. So we've seen a decline of about 2/3 over the last decade, people entering on kind of that level 1 instructional permit. And then about 95% of the educator workforce, the teacher workforce in Pennsylvania is white. And that's been a pretty consistent statistic over the years. So seeing the opportunity to really sort of simultaneously do something about that issue was really how ultimately PSEA formed a partnership with PDK and EdRising. And it's pretty remarkable in a way. 1/3 of my job is to be the state coordinator for Educators Rising. So it's pretty unique for PSEA to essentially have an employee coordinating another organization's program. And as a part of that, we also not only my stuff goes to that, but we actually pay for the program and the state conference. So PSEA truly is in this altruistically to do something about the shortage and diversity issues. So with that, pushing to kind of get it started, then it's a matter of how do we get the ball rolling? And that is where, like Amanda was able to step forward with School District Lancaster and Brittany with Phoenixville. And part of that also was getting the CTE pathway here in Pennsylvania, which was a part of that push. Pennsylvania's been talking about educator workforce development for like 15 years. And the one career and technical ed pathway that did not exist was to be a teacher that's in front of kids every day. And so PSEA obviously advocated for Senate Bill 99 going back 3 years ago, which passed and mandated the creation of CTE pathway, which is SIP code 13.0101 for those CTE heads out there. And that began last year. And so that pathway also, might be a good entry point for Amanda as School District Lancaster was looking at how do we solve some of our own shortage issues. And they were an early adopter of that pathway, and Amanda stepped forward to be the teacher leader for that program.
Okay, so I guess I'll lead right in very quickly. I was actually tapped by a couple people knowing that this position was coming to our district, to our high school, and asked if I would be interested in the position. I think possibly the allure is that I have taught at elementary and middle school, and I've been a classroom teacher, I've been a dean of students, I've been an instructional coach, I've been an assistant principal. So I have a really nice, large, well-rounded field of experience in the education system. Funny, with all of the certificates that I have, I actually wasn't certified to teach high school. So I had to study and get the family consumer science degree, which was difficult because I don't really understand interior decorating or sewing, but I passed. And now I'm certified to teach high schoolers. And so that's kind of the path that I got there. I just applied for the job, and that's how I got involved with Educators Rising.
Great, I guess that's me then. I think it's cool that Amanda and I are both on this because she's from the CTE world and I'm from a traditional high school environment. I was asked by our administrator early on in the school year last year to reinvigorate a idea that they had years ago. I guess our school used to have a course called Teaching Young Children. Just kind of fizzled, like it just wasn't run very well and it wasn't super exciting. So they asked me to start a club because I'm generally pretty peppy and I love my job. So I thought maybe other kids would be like, yeah, let's go hang out with Missy. So I started the club, and I found EdRising and Chris pretty quickly, and it just it boomed. So we've made quite the splash. Last year got involved with as much as we could. We went to states and nationals. So far this year, we've even been on ABC, CBS, and the Philadelphia Inquirer came to visit us this past Monday. So it's been cool and a little bit nerve-wracking, but I feel like it's good coverage for the program, good coverage for the kids. They were very into the idea. So yeah, we want to grow this program. We want to grow the idea statewide, but of course at Phoenixville too.
Thank you so much. And I just want to point out, picking the right teacher is essential. Like, when you're energetic and you love your job, that's going to transcend to your students, and they're going to see that you love your job. And so many future teachers that I taught would say, I know so-and-so, I would never let them use names. I know so-and-so hates their job. And I would say, how do you know? They're like, I can just tell by the way they act, the way they interact with us. They can feel that energy. And when you have that positive, energetic energy, they will match that. So thank you for saying that. It's really important that our kids see what it's like to love your job. And somebody just said to me yesterday, I can tell that you just love education. It just permeates, right? So just keeping that energy up and showing your kids is fantastic. Now I want to pivot to the next question. Just walk us through what the beginning, and you guys are both newer. Amanda, your mic was making a really funky noise, so I'm not sure if people could hear you, but if not, I can repeat whatever you say. Walk us through what the process of starting your chapter, what did that look like, beginning of a year, what are some kickoff activities? And then I also want to mention, and Chris, you might want to touch on this, different ways things look at a school versus different ways programs could look. They could be CTEs, they could be chapters. So just to touch on that, but let's walk us through the process of starting a chapter and kicking off that back to school in a positive, good way. What do you guys do?
Either I go big picture, or Brittany and Amanda can go small picture. How do you want to start, Lisa?
Let's go big, and then we'll get Brittany and Amanda to give what they do in their classes. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. So as we said last year, literally there were 0 members of EdRising. There were 0 programs, and so we really had a multitude of ways that chapters got started last year. Right? We had 13 apply and 4 approved for the first ever CTE pathway. So last year was the first year there, and I was fortunate enough. So my background, I was a high school English and IB theory of knowledge teacher, district administrator, national board certified teacher, just renewed. As you said, that passion for education and it permeates hopefully out through me and all the different ways possible to get programs started. I think one of the big points here is part of the reason that we've seen the shortage emerge is because of the narrative that's been built around becoming a teacher. And so many of our kids are hearing, don't do it. And there has been no structure with real positive folks and positive voices and programs to sort of combat and really provide a program that gives them the opposite narrative, right? That teaching isn't amazing. It's the profession that creates all professions. And Educators Rising really gives the opportunity to do that, but you got to get those programs started. So we had a few that started last year in the full CTE route, and that looks really different. Like Amanda's CTE program is pretty unique in that last year there were over 20 kids, but they actually are a full CTE approved program, a 2-year program, but they're on site at McCaskey High School. So the kids don't have to leave to go to the CTC, whereas we have Central West Moreland Career and Technical Center, just an example, that had 12 kids from 4 different high schools that went to their morning high school and then bussed over to the site and were there all afternoon at the Career and Technical Center. And then we have even York County Comprehensive Technical High School, where the kids apply as 8th graders and then they go all 4 years to the CTC on site, but they have sports and all assemblies and all those things. So it's a comprehensive. So even in the CTE world, right, there are different models. So we've had some that got started in the full CTE pathway last year, and they had to work through their own challenges of, busing and funding and all of that, right? And then we had Brittany would be an example of, they started last year as an advisory after school club model, right, Brittany? And then this year have gotten enough kids to where they basically are running it as during the school day elective course. So it's a career elective that kids are taking the class, but it's not officially in the CTE realm. And so that's a different model. And then we've had a lot of places that get started as an advisory or after school club model, kind of like FFA or FBLA. But then they eventually maybe roll it into either the CTE model or the career elective model. So we started last year with just a few programs. As of this year, I think we've got at least 35 chapters in different iterations across Pennsylvania. We ended last year with 168 members. We had over 80 of them go to our state conference, for our first ever state conference this year. So we had a lot of chapters get started throughout the year last year even. And then obviously Brittany and Amanda can talk about getting the school year started kind of in year 2 now. But Brittany's pretty unique and she's starting in a different model than she did last year even, right, Brittany?
Yep. We started, like Chris said, as just a club last year. Started with 4 kids at the beginning of the year and grew pretty quickly, like I said before. This year we still have the club because our elective course is only available to juniors and seniors. So I pushed for the club remaining because I didn't want the underclassmen to not have the experience leading up into potentially taking the course. So my district purchased the curriculum for me to use, and I have started using that. We're working our way through Unit 1, trying to dabble with the assessment program too, and running most of the stuff that Chris runs, like the state conference and the Apex and national stuff, running that through the club so that the underclassmen can also be involved.
In fall conference this year.
Yeah, fall conference is November 8th.
Plug
in
your fall
Millersville.
conference.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Does my mic, does this sound much better?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yay.
good. So the way Chris had said, I'm a CTE program, which means not only did I have to evaluate and take a look at the EdRising curriculum, but I had to apply for state approval as well. So I had a whole process there, and my district was amazing in affording me the time to do that. I co-taught most of my classes last year without a class of my own, which was really nice. And we have an existing early childhood class. That teacher, Miss Johnson, is amazing. And although it is childcare daycare services, she is a phenomenal teacher, has been in our district for 25 plus years, and she really overtaught, and those kids were ready to be teachers. She kind of stretched that early childhood up to 2nd grade. So I really, the success I'm having with my program is off her coattails. She had a solid foundation already with clinical experiences going on, and she was able to guide me through the CTE process of things. So what I was able to do to set up is that we did have a club, and that was really for me to play catch up. And to also the seniors, we told them it's a 2-year program. Let me start with that. In their junior year, they have a 2-block schedule. In their senior year, they have a 4-block schedule. So, and each block is about 48 to 50 minutes long. And I don't want to say too much like what I'm going to say later in the webinar, but just to get up and running, like I said, I really meshed with hers, but I used the seniors to help evaluate, and I taught some lessons from the EdRising curriculum, and I got their feedback instantly. What would you like me to do differently next year? Do you think this was relevant? How would you change this? How would you make this better? And so they were empowered and loved giving me feedback. And our club was but we still had a club. This year I have almost a full year. I'm still not on the job a year. I'll be on the job a year in the middle of October. But this year we are hoping to add, we have 5 middle schools in our district. And so I'm hoping to partner with the middle school principals, and each of them are going to have a future teacher club so that we can start a recruitment pathway as well. We already start with our CTE program to recruit in 8th grade. We recruit 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and then they sign up for the program in 11th grade. And it's 11th and 12th graders only. And kind of like Brittany, I wanted more students involved. So I think I'm going to open up the club to 9th through 12th graders, and even if they're not in our program. And this year we have 21 students. So Chris, I grew by 1 student. We have 21 students instead of 20. So I'm super excited about that. And the junior class is actually my very first on my own educator prep program course. Last year it was co-teaching. And then because it's a 2-year program, this year the seniors were co-teaching also. But the juniors are now, we have a junior class of early childhood, and we have a junior class of educator prep program. So we have split for our junior years, but The co-teacher and I, we've been friends for 20 years also. We work really well together. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to mesh the two classes.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that point up, because that was an issue when I taught. Was we had an ECE and an Ed Professions, and they thought that those would be competing numbers and we'd be like pitting against each other. That's not true, right? You just said not true in your case. It was not true in my case. We had two very healthy, strong programs, and they were separate but also merged, like you said. It's really easy to make sure like we can explore education careers in all areas, right? Like ECE, you want to explore this age group. We get to Ed Professions, admin, support services, non-core subject teaching areas. There's so much more to explore that kids may never have even thought about. So if you're in a situation where you have an ECE already and you're worried about the competition part of it, Amanda and I are here to tell you, you can all work well together, and have both programs exist happily. And the thing that you guys both touched on was the curriculum. So we're going to dive into a little bit about the curriculum. I know one of you mentioned your district paid for it. That was very generous. One of your districts gave you time to plan for the pathway. That's very generous. So district support is key, right? But our curriculum is based on national board standards, aligned to INTAS standards, can be crosswalked with any of your state standards. I just wanted to touch on a little bit about your experience with diving into the curriculum. One of you mentioned that you're diving into the assessments, which I'm super happy to hear. But how do you utilize the curriculum? And I love the fact that you said student voice. Like, let's get feedback. They're future teachers, right? They should be able to tell when a lesson was great or what they could have used more of or less of. So do you use the curriculum as it's prescribed? Do you flexible, move it around? Tell me how you use it, and how do you supplement other things with it and support the goals that you have for your kids?
I guess I'll jump in. I was given a little bit of time at the end of not this past school year, but the year before, when we were going to start this club up, to kind of poke around, investigate. We also had hopes of doing a dual enrollment situation with a local community college. So we talked to them and got their course syllabus for the course that we thought would line up the best with ours. I kind of took the EdRising course and the Montgomery County Community College and tried to marry them together, keeping their syllabus, because I had to, but using as much EdRising stuff as I could. Throughout the course of last year with the club and like refining this and getting our school board to approve, the dual enrollment piece fizzled. So I was like, well, I like the EdRising curriculum the way it is, actually. So if we're not going to play nicely with Monco, then I'm going to use EdRising as it is. So I asked our curriculum department if that's okay, because what was board approved was the merged version. And they were like, yeah, you do what you want. We'll just kind of write it in kind of underneath it, and we'll make changes as we go. So that's what we're doing. I started in on Unit 1 shortly after the year started. We are in our 4th week of school at Phoenixville. We started a little early. So I did the anti-bias instruction piece, and I did the professionalism piece. And actually it's kind of cool too, because the professionalism has a little bit about the model code of ethics for educators. And we had a little breakout session at nationals about that from someone from ETS. So I reached out to them, and I'm trying to get my kids Pro Ethica certified too. So it's kind of funny how like all these things kind of go. So I told my kids, like with the student voice too, I was like, listen guys, this is our first year at this. We are pioneers. We can make this the way we want it to be. And you and I are a team, and we're going to figure out the best way to do this from here on out. So I have a really, really great group of kids. So I really feel like this is going to set Phoenixville on a path to make this as good as we can. I'm excited to see where it goes. I used the assessment platform today, actually, for the first time. Gotta keep poking around at it. And there was couple unexpected things, but I told them, I was like, you know what, guys, just take it. And we're gonna see, like I said, we'll figure it out together, what we're gonna use and what we're not. And they seem to be on board. So it's been exciting so far.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I, like I said before, I piloted some of the curricular pieces last year, and this year with my juniors, I'm looking at year 1 implementation the guidelines with EdRising, but I also have a CTE, like geared towards CTE students, a teaching textbook as well. So I mesh the two curriculums together. It's because it's a new program in a CTE, a new course in a CTE program. We still have a lot of kids that are non-traditional, not necessarily college-bound students. But our philosophy is that these programs give them skills that they can use whether they go to college or not, and give them the experience and the credentials whether they go to college or not. So I have to do a good amount of adapting of some of the curriculum to meet all the needs of my students, which we do on a daily basis. And today was a big vocabulary lesson. We spent a lot of time on vocabulary. I have a lot of English language learners as for students. I'm in an urban school district, and our numbers are inverted as far as staff versus students. Our faculty, we do not look like our student population at all, and that is the main goal of this program, is to bring those kids back to our school district and fill the teaching slots so that they can have teachers that look like them in the classrooms. And we're very upfront about that. And sometimes the kids will say, like, well, miss, like you won't have a job. And I joke with them and I say, oh, please, I'm that good, I will have a job. And I said, but I also know that I can go get a job anywhere. And I said, I would love for one of you to come and replace me. And I, we're very upfront about that. And we are all about getting that diversified workforce, or population into the workforce. And really, just, Chris said earlier, we have a negative connotation around teaching. Kids that never in a million years thought that they could be a teacher or thought that they could go to college. We had 2 students that were seniors last year, and it was April, and they looked at me and they said, Miss, I think I want to go to college. And I'm like, oh, okay. So let's explore that, right? And one of them is starting at the community college in the fall, and the other one, actually, to go, Lisa, on your point of ECE, we have a paraprofessional shortage also, and she had an interview, and her orientation is tomorrow. So she is going to be a paraprofessional in a 4-year-old K4 classroom. We have 4-year-old classrooms in our district, and her orientation is tomorrow. So that's really how we're using this curriculum. We are supplementing it, we're adapting it, but it really focuses on what kids need to know, to be successful teachers. And 2 of our seniors last year, that graduated, and they're about 3 weeks into college, they're like, Miss, I know everything. And we're like, shh, don't tell, okay, well, don't be that kid in class. And they're like, we don't need to take this class. Like, we know everything. We could teach this class. And we got a text message from another student that said, look, I seriously can't stop talking about Erickson. I'm that kid again. So they're learning a lot, and the curriculum is definitely, there's definitely an impact on the kids, and they're holding on to that knowledge. So it's exciting to see.
Thank you so much for sharing those. Those are the stories that I love to hear about. And Amanda touched on a great point. In CTE, we prepare for college and or career ready. We want you to have the industry credential, have the para, go right back into the classroom if that's what you want to do. If you want to go to college, great. There is a place for everyone in education, and I think that's a key component. Chris?
Yeah, it's just a couple of things, big picture, and I really love hearing the stories of specific kids and how this interface is really changing their paradigm and ultimately their life trajectory. And think about how different their lives would be, but also then the thousands of students that they'll interface with over the course of a career, and how impactful that can be. Just some raw statistics, right? The 2019-20 school year here in Pennsylvania, over 50% of the schools employed an only white teacher workforce that school year. Over 37% of the districts in Pennsylvania had an entirely white teaching workforce in the entire district. There were 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Over 20 of the counties had only white teachers in the entire county. And so when you think about the impact of essentially going your entire 13 years of experience in school and never seeing one teacher or one educator that looks like you, right? It takes a really intentional efforts to sort of break that cycle. And having this structure that EdRising potentially provides to tap some kids on the shoulder that maybe have never seen someone that looks like them in front of a classroom and say, hey, maybe you never thought about it, but you would be a great teacher, is so, in fact, it's the only way we'll actually do anything about the diversity issue we have. So I think it's really important that we create those structures. On that note, also a couple big things. We applied here in Pennsylvania, and I'm happy to say won any Great Public Schools grant, which then was built on identifying our most diverse locals and school districts in the state and saying, if you will start a program, we'll pay for it. And so we want $750,000 or $250,000 a year for 3 years, and are reaching out to our most diverse school districts and CTCs to say, please start a program and we will fully fund it. In fact, we've got Deb Broderick I saw on this call, who we just onboarded onto that grant, I think this week in the last couple of days, from Central Montgomery CTC. And so we are really trying to make sure that the curriculum gets into the hands of districts and that funding is not an issue. And then the college point is really significant as well. Individual districts and CTCs can create, of course, their own articulation agreements, but that can get messy. There are 500 school districts plus a whole slew of CTCs in the state. And there are over 90 colleges and universities that have teacher preparation programs in Pennsylvania. And that's not even including community colleges. So when you ask 500 different plus districts to do individual articulation agreements with over 100 institutions of higher ed, it can get really complicated. So we are finalizing an agreement with Penn West University, which is one of our state universities, that if students participate in the curriculum and complete the 5 EdRising micro credentials that are aligned to the curriculum, they will get 3 of their classes done in the ed track at no cost. They will walk into Penn West with 3 of their ed classes done. We're also working on an agreement at the state level with Westchester University, which is out by Brittany, for 2 classes. So we are talking about the curriculum big picture, right? We are really working actively to create opportunities, not only to engage with diverse group of kids on thinking about becoming teachers, but then to really get them skilled, informed, but also then more expediently on the way into the classroom. Because as Amanda touched on, they spend 2 years with this curriculum. It's incredible the knowledge, skill set, and dispositions they're walking into already, right? And some of those classes in college will be redundant. And so how do we sort of recognize those experiences and get them into the classroom sooner? I'm really excited about those opportunities, because there are EdRising curriculums built on national standards that are derived from the Best Practices National Board Professional Teaching Standards, right? And it is a 2-year scoped and sequenced national curriculum. So why do we need to wait for every individual school district to make every individual agreement, right? If it's built on that national solid platform.
Yeah, amazing, Chris. We are so impressed by the work that you're doing in Pennsylvania and all of the strides that you've made in just such a short time, and all of the press that Pennsylvania has been getting recently. And we're super excited. And I think to build on that within the curriculum, and we had a webinar a couple of months ago with the students, EdRising students who were student teachers, saying, I am light years ahead of these other kids in my college, in my group, in my courses. So what Amanda is saying and what I could teach this course, yes, that is how well prepared our students are. And we also had webinars where we have current teachers who are former EdRising students saying, I could have done this 5 years ago and skipped college. We don't want them to, but they are very well prepared. So let's dive into getting them that experience. Let's dive into the clinical experiences. What opportunities from observing at a younger age, or maybe they're not just ready just yet. I would have my sophomores and my freshmen just observe, get them kind of a little taste, maybe have them job shadow. Then they get into their full clinical experiences. So Brittany and Amanda, can you share with us what it looks like in your district, in your area? How do they start working with students and getting familiarized and then figuring out what grade level they might be interested in?
Yeah, I already gave them a little first day of school survey, where do you think you want to be right now? And I plan on doing that again closer to when I can get them to an individual placement. My pie in the sky grand plan is to, as a group, then there's 17 of us in the class, 17 of them, 18 with me. I actually have 40 in the club now. So we're talking just the class. I'm going to have a preschool observation day. We're blessed to have a middle school, an elementary school, and an early learning center on the high school's campus. So we can do one placement day at an early learning center, one at our elementary, one at the middle school. I'm going to skip the high school because I think they know that environment. And they can even kind of take their classes in from a different perspective on their own. And I actually have a connection with Valley Forge University, which is a Christian college really close to Phoenixville. So we are going to go see a methods class there, just to kind of check it out. And a lot of them are seniors, 14 out of 17 are seniors. So that's on their radar. So I thought that'd be cool. So we're going to get a little taste of all the levels. I'm going to give them some observation guidelines to kind of like compare one level to another, and then ask them these questions again. Where do you want to be? The fourth marking period, I would like to have them start working with one individual teacher, and I'm going to use my instructional coaches that work for our district to help me hand select other teachers in our district that I think will want to do this and do a good job with our kids. And just have them observe with that one person for a little bit, maybe like 2 or 3 days out of the 5 that I see them. And while they're not doing that, I'm hoping to do micro credentials. Hopefully all 5 actually applied for a grant that would give us $5,000, and that would almost cover every kid doing all 3 or all 5 micro credentials. So that would be cool. They could work on that in class while they're not observing. And then our seniors do a career study placement. Like halfway through the 4th marking period, they are allowed to not be in school. And as long as they have a job, or if they're shadowing a job training, I'm going to encourage my seniors to stay with their person, with their teacher, and be there all day, every day for the rest of that school year. So that'll really get them in. And then those teachers can kind of just hold their hand and give them everything that they're willing to give them. Like, here, plan this science lesson, or here, we're going to talk about an SEL thing, like, you take that. So plan with them, almost like a version of student teaching. So I'm hoping that that's how it's going to shake out. And I think we have a very good chance of making all that happen.
Some good options. Amanda?
So currently, the way that we have it set up is that our juniors, it's a double block period. So about an hour and a half, 2 days a week. They, for the early childhood center, we have classes, we have a on-site childcare center. So they get to go there, but across the street is an elementary school. So we're going to, I think it's every month, they're going to be in a classroom. I'm sorry, my screen just went. I don't know if you can see me or hear me still.
We can see you and hear you.
Oh, good. I can't see anybody. And oh, there we go. Okay. So I'll make this, I'm looking at the time now all of a sudden. So I'll make this as fast as I can. So during their junior year, they're going to get 2 days a week, about 3 hours a week of observational time where they can assist in the classrooms. They're going to get experience K through 5. And then we have a partner middle school that we're going to do. We're going to be bused over to the middle school, and we're going to have an observation day where they're going to be paired up with a mentor teacher. And we're probably going to do that twice in a school year, in their junior year. And that's just what we're doing this year. We're just elementary and middle. And for high school, because I'm a CTE program, I have something called an OAC. It's an Occupational Advisory Committee. And on my committee, I have just friends and colleagues from all around Lancaster County. And we've had 2 high schools that are willing to work with us and host us for a day, an observation day also. Just wanted to get our students out of the urban setting and kind of see another high school setting. So they'll do that. And then as seniors with their 4-block schedule, 2 days a week from 11:30 to 3, they're going to be bused to a school. It's not really of their choice. They get to choose grade level. And then we're going to pair them up with teachers as well. And the teachers will be vetted as well. It's not just like who wants a student teacher, a high school student teacher. We're going to vet those teachers. And if the seniors drive and have a car, they may pick any school in our district. And if they have a former teacher, they may do that. Otherwise, we have two partner elementary schools and 2 partner middle schools. And those are the 4 schools that the students will be able to pick from for their student teaching. With the CTE comes a training plan, so that students have to submit an entire training plan during their student teaching as well.
And Lisa, just big picture, I'd add real quick, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't note that obviously the curriculum offers full support to really start students on clinical experiences in a really systematic way. Obviously, you can do it sort of, a bunch of different ways, but it gives structure to do that. And that's a really neat aspect of the curriculum. And two, we're seeing across the state, right, clinical experiences really being adaptive to the needs of the locale, right? We have some places where the district has the entire middle, high school, and elementary all in one big parking lot where kids can literally like walk, right, and do an elementary observation, a middle school observation, et cetera. And then we've got places like Lehigh County Technical Institute that is a really massive CTC where kids are coming from 11 different high schools. And so the best place for them to do their clinical is going to be at their neighborhood school. And we got to help coordinate that. So really configuring those clinical experiences to what really matches the locale of the district and the needs of the students, I think is really key. But the curriculum really does give that structure there. And I know we'd also be remiss if, student teaching is such an important experience, but we here in Pennsylvania, it was my student PSCA group that led the passing of the student teaching stipend, which for the first time in the history of Pennsylvania, now students will get a $10,000 stipend during their student teaching, which is, another huge barrier that hopefully it's not a panacea fix all, but it definitely will help at that key juncture to have that stipend during that student teaching window. So that's all new aspects, but things to consider with that clinical phase that are so important right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And our curriculum does give great clinical experience guidance, and it's really about figuring out what works for your district. Some districts, yes, they're going to have an ECE on site or an elementary across the street. Some do not. Like, there's guidance for everybody and how to figure this out or how to zoom in. There's a lot of different ways that we can get that done. So I appreciate you bringing attention to that, Chris. We're going to ask one last final question. I just want to throw out there to the audience, if you have questions, you can throw them in the Q&A. We are going to go live and answer any questions that you have. If they're specifically for Brittany, Chris, or Amanda, please address that question to them in the Q&A feature. So we're going to pivot to that after this question. So get your questions in so that we can get those answered live. But we're going to talk about one last thing in terms of, and I'll just speak from my own personal experience. I had a 4-year pathway. I got 130 freshmen. They may or may not have signed up for my course, right? First day, I hate you, I hate kids, I don't want to be here. Why did I get this class? Someone on their schedule put them in there, right? But I will preface by saying out of 130 freshmen that year, 112 went on to year 2. So something went right that kept them in the class, right? So discuss, Amanda and Brittany specifically, what are some ways you get those kids who they come to you, I don't even like kids, I don't even want to be here, I don't even know how this got on my schedule, because there are kids that will go, oh, I do want to do this, or I do love doing this. How do you turn kids on, and this could even be recruitment, how do you get them to understand the power of teaching and that a teacher is the teacher of all other professions, and this might be something they're really going to be good at? What do you say to those kids, or how do you get them to join the movement, Brittany?
I don't know if there's a correct answer to this or like an easy answer, but I don't know. I feel like the thing that my kids connect to the most is just being real, like keeping it real with them and being excited and being like, listen, guys, you can really, if you change the life and the path of one kid and make their world better, like that just makes your heart just feel so good, like to make somebody else grow, achieve something. I did actually have a kid, one of the originals last year, that came into the club meeting, the very first club meeting, and sat down and said, I don't want to be a teacher. I'm just waiting for my friend because they're giving me a ride home. And I was like, all right, you can stay here. That's fine. But I had this like round table idea. So I have a friend that's a principal in elementary school, and one of the student teachers that was in our building, I had them come and like just like talk, and the kids could like ask them questions and like, what do you look for in a teacher? And like just whatever they had in their hearts. And he literally got up from the table in the back of my room and walked himself over to the circle and sat down and got right in there and started asking questions. And I just kind of like side smiled him. I was like, okay. But now he's actually, it's Trevor. He's one of our state officers too. So I'm like, here we are. So I don't know if teacher is in his blood yet. I told him exactly what you said. I think you're, oh, there's my daughter. I think you're going to be a really awesome teacher if this is something that you want, but you know, you got to investigate things, don't close doors, and keep showing up.
Yes, I say that all the time. All it takes is telling one kid, you would make a great teacher. They may have never, ever thought. And you know, when somebody that they love and they admire and they respect is telling them that, they listen. They really do. And I will tell a quick, short little story about my favorite Jeremiah, who, when you guys are saying like explore those, you know, explore education professions or what you think, like Brittany said, I'm going to give a survey at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, because I guarantee there'll be some changes once they explore a little bit more, right? So my sweet, sweet Jeremiah had said he really, really, really wanted to be a kindergarten intern. And I was like, you're fifth grade. I know you're fifth grade. I can feel it in my heart that you would be aligned best to fifth grade. And I convinced him to just try it in a 6-week rotation. Just, you can go to kindergarten after you try fifth grade. And after his 6-week rotation, he stayed with fifth grade the remainder and became a middle school teacher. So sometimes we do know what's best for them when they don't know. So exposing, it's just about exposure, right? It's just about exposure. Amanda, did you have anything to add to turning them on to the power of teaching?
I just try to get as many mentors and current teachers in front of them, guest speakers. The superintendent is coming in this week to talk with them, to really empower them. We try to use them throughout the district. There are now schools that are the elementary school that's across the street. They have an equity committee, and they found a gap in some of their instruction, and they specifically requested the students from our program. So like, tell them this. We tell them, and a lot of times too, and I should say, ours is an elective. No one gets placed in our class if they don't want to be there. So that's kind of nice, but they do come with just wanting, sometimes with the early childhood program, oh, I just want to play with the babies. Yeah. That's not what we do. And so this year was the first year that Mrs. Johnson and I really had that chance to be together in the classroom before they split. And we were like ECE, early childhood, versus educator prep program. We called it EPP. So ECE versus EPP. And we really just, we went through both textbooks. We told them the field experiences for both. We, we told them you can't go wrong with either one of us in either one of our programs, because no matter what your goals is in education, we're going to help you get there. We start early with, where do you think you're at? Where do you think you want to do? Where do you want to go? Last year, we had a junior that during like communicable diseases, early childhood program, she would look at me and I'm like, oh, honey, we have a nurse. No worries. You don't have to deal with that. And then my co-teacher has like a poop PowerPoint. And I was like, nope, we don't do that. And right away, I kind of knew when she was cringing at some of those early childhood things, I was like, oh, she's my middle school. She's my secondary person. And as of right now, she's one of 2 secondary. I have a high school person who wants to be in high school, and she's pretty sure about that. But the one that was, oh, she's outspoken and she has that mentality, I know she is going to rock it in a middle school setting. And I just can't wait to see her. So we pump those kids up. The authenticity is major. And really, I left the classroom because a principal said to me way back when, you're a leader. Have you ever thought of? And I thought, no, I'm a classroom teacher. And the next year I was pulled out and I became an instructional facilitator, like a coach. And, I haven't been in the classroom for 16 years, but this job brought me back into the classroom, and I am stoked about it. And I tell the kids that story, and I don't have a traditional college story. I did not go to school to be a teacher. So that's the other story that I tell my class as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to go to the questions. We have one live one. Chris and then Amanda already answered the other one. If you want more information on our Educators Rising micro credentials, please feel free to reach out. They are available for your districts. All right, question for Brittany, Chris, and Amanda. How do districts create opportunities to recruit diversity to Educators Rising teacher and leaders? Access to more teacher diversity during your programs? Chris kind of already touched on a little bit where there's a strategic move to go into some different districts. So that could be one of them. And is the question, Mary, for teacher leaders? Chris, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a multitude of ways to consider, right? I mean, I think number one, getting a program started, and it's literally as easy potentially as having one person join as a teacher leader, right, Lisa? And you establish a chapter, and then, you know, kids, it's $15, and they're members of Educators Rising Pennsylvania and EdRising National, and you have a chapter, and you could start that way, pretty simply to kind of get the ball rolling. And like both Brittany and Amanda talked about, you know, I think if you get kids and you're positive, engaged, and passionate and energetic about this profession, then it'll resonate with them, and you'll have an opportunity to build from there. From there, right, the curriculum is the cost, really. So then I think you're getting into thinking about what is our model, right? Are we going to be full CTE pathway? Are we going career elective? But I think ultimately it's how are we getting started in terms of creating some form of a structure where kids interface with an adult, right? That is a passionate, hopeful, optimistic, non-curmudgeon-y, non-cynical, non-jaded, right? Like really loves our profession and wants to interact and engage with kids and talk about it in an apologetic way and have that dynamic with kids. I mean, it's as simple as that. A bigger picture to answer the question, I think, you know, so simply you could join PDK EdRising as a teacher leader and get started that way. Bigger picture, right, is, you know, if you're coming from a district that's particularly diverse or funding would be an issue, let me know. We do have the grant. Our grant is specifically to award our locals that are diverse locals initially. And so if funding is an issue in terms of like you would like to have the curriculum and all that, my email is cclayton@psea.org. I'll put it in the chat. And if that might be of interest, that reach out and let me know. And that's certainly a possibility as well. But I think there's everything from the big picture and starting a program and models and implementation and membership and CTE pathway and SIP code and OACs and all of that to small picture of tonight, you could start a chapter, join as a teacher leader, start talking with kids about the profession. So it literally could be as big and grandiose or as small and immediate as that.
That's right. It only takes one teacher and one student to start a chapter. So if you're a diverse teacher, sign up, start a chapter. It's the way to go. Any other questions for the Q&A? Looks like all of them have been answered. If you have any questions that you think about in your 3 a.m. thoughts, please feel free to email me. You can email community@educatorsrising.org. If you have questions for Brittany or Chris or Amanda or need to get in touch with them, again, feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you to all of them very easily. We appreciate everything that you three have done for Pennsylvania students and teachers so much from the bottom of my heart. I know I've worked very closely with Chris for several years on this, and I just know that there's been so much work and so much passion into this. If you are in the audience in a Pennsylvania school who is interested, please reach out to Chris. Please reach out to me. We will make sure that you get the services and the resources that you need. We'll make sure to make this as easy as possible. And Brittany and Amanda, you are inspiring. I know why you're teaching this course. I appreciate both of you so much for all that you're doing and that you will do for your future students. There is a Net Promoter Score that just popped up. If you can do that, fill that out real quick. Thank
and
you
Lisa,
all.
real quick, before you jump off, another way to get involved just occurred to me, right? We have a fall conference November 8th at Millersville University. Absolutely free if you can get your kids there. If you start a club tonight and then want to get them engaged with the larger state network, you come. Like PSEA is paying for the event. And then our state conference, March 28th, on the campus of Penn State University, literally in the education building at Penn State College in the center of the state. All they have to do is be EdRising members, bring them to that. So, you know, I think engaging with the larger network and getting them out beyond just the high school site, right, and seeing, oh my gosh, I'm a part of, you know, hundreds of members statewide or 25,000 members nationwide is also a really good starting point. And you don't have to have the curriculum or any of that stuff to attend those events either. So I would probably be remiss if I didn't mention that too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fall conference, state conference. that collaborative community, and you even saw in the video where a student was like, I'm surrounded by all of these, you're surrounded with people who are like you and who you're finding your people. And it's really important in education that we find our people. And Chris and PLCA has provided the opportunity for many, many in Pennsylvania to do so. So we're super excited to have you here. Any last minute before we sign off? All right, thank you once again to all of our panelists and everybody at PDK who helped put on this webinar. We're really excited to be part of this movement, and I can feel the energy around the school year 24-25, and I'm super excited. So if you do have any questions or you want to get in touch with Brittany or Chris or Amanda, please feel free to email community@educatorsrising.org. If you need the curriculum or resources, please reach out. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. We're here to help. Thank you so much and have a great night.